Last night, folks, Hope Global Forums kicked off with a great night, speech by Chris Gardner, also pitches by some young entrepreneurs, but also there was a conversation I moderated with John Rogers Jr. of Aero Capital Management, as well as Ambassador Andrew Young. Here is, take a listen.
I talked to Reverend Jackson today, and Reverend Jackson's often always talking about the fact that we need access to capital, which is true, but we also need access to customers. And I think that's one of the things that we know from the legacy from Ambassador Young and from Maynard Jackson. They made sure that the city was there as a great customer for minority businesses. And then they used the bully pulpit to pressure the anchor institutions, the universities, the hospitals, the museums, the major corporations to do business with our community. We're not pushing that battle anymore. We're not fighting that battle anymore. We're letting these anchor institutions only work with other white institutions, and then we don't have access to customers. If you look at the Black Enterprise list now of top 100 companies, there's a disproportionate amount of African-American businesses that are in the food service industry. And that's because McDonald's, for example, where I've been on the board the last 14 years, works with minority suppliers consistently. And it's had a long history of minority franchisees. And those are the businesses that have been able to grow and thrive. We need to have our anchor institutions, again, working with our local businesses, and then we'll be able to hire and employ our own community.
But let me just say, I mean, I'm not arguing with any of this. I am saying it's irrelevant.
Why?
Race is irrelevant right now. And if you want to think racially, that was 1960. Amazon is closing Sears. That ain't got nothing to do with race. I mean, you buy on Amazon instead of the Sears Roebuck catalog.
John, when we still look at what's happening in this country, you have this divide, this view that, as you said earlier, that things have just gotten so much greater for African Americans compared to others. In your experience, how then do we get Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American to understand that if you are invisible and I'm invisible, both of us invisible, and somebody else is totally ignoring us, it makes sense for us to get together to become visible?
Well, one of the things I would add to, one of the things in your prior life, you ran the Chicago Defender, which was our iconic newspaper that has really gotten to be quite tiny in Chicago. And I think I tried to tell them, let me stay there.
Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
You've worked out great with your career. But I bring that up because I think that we have to have strong political leadership that we've learned here in Atlanta. We also have to have a strong Black media, and that can get out and tell our stories and tell the world how we're not getting the opportunities that we really deserve.
If you're going to be in business in today's world, tomorrow's world, of the 9 billion people on the planet, 4 billion of them are going to be African. And the economy in Europe is declining. The economy in China is leveled off. It's India and Africa, and the United States of America. And that's why I think, that's also why I think that the Googles and the Apples are looking for the new markets.
But to your question, I do think that the pressure matters. I think we have to support our civil rights organizations and our civil rights leaders, because what Reverend Jackson's been able to do, and Reverend Sharpton and others, has really moved the needle. I mean, I've seen it close up there in Silicon Valley, and I've also seen it in Wall Street, because Reverend Jackson has his Wall Street project and is starting to push those private equity firms and the hedge funds and the investment banks and the larger banks to have more diversity in their institutions for the first time. And it's so important, because if you think about it, the wealth really in today's society is being grown in two places. There's a lot of billionaires in Silicon Valley, but there's an awful lot on Wall Street.
See, if we're talking about getting this nation or getting our states and cities to see the invisible class, what do you charge the folks in this room to do when they leave this forum?
I charge you to do what my daddy told me to do. And that is, he says, son, this ivory soap, 9944, 100% pure. That ain't good enough for you. Ivory soap is white, you black. And you got to know that. You have to have a different vision. You have to have a different morality. You have to, if you see things like everybody else and want to be like everybody else, that ain't that's not progress. They even told me about Toynbee, that the reason black folk may save Western civilization is the fact that they're the only thing different than the cultures of Western Europe coming here.
And Ambassador Young, has been great to come to our conference we have every year for African Americans on corporate boards. It's called the Black Corporate Directors Conference, and Deloitte and Russell Reynolds are our partners in that. And what we try to do every year is bring African Americans that are on Fortune 500 companies together to learn how to be leaders in the boardroom. But in particular, we're trying to learn and remind all of our board members the importance of taking a civil rights agenda into the boardroom every single time they step into those boardrooms when they're fortunate to be on a corporate board. So every year we'll have what we call the conscience of the conference. Someone like Ambassador Young, we had Eric Holder, we've had Reverend Jackson, we've had Harry Belafonte. We even had by a video the late Maynard Jackson, to remind those of us that are on these boards that we have a responsibility to fight for our community when we're there and not sit idly by and not fight for us. And I think that's really what we have to do. It's up to us to make a difference. Whether we're in the corporation or we're at a university or we're in the boardroom, we've got to sort of live the values of fighting for us every day and making sure that we're included in everything that those institutions are all about. Ambassador.
I think we have to take the leadership. And Delta wasn't flying to Africa till I got on the board. And I had to almost blackmail them into doing that. Now they're two most prosperous flights, the most money-making flights to Nigeria and to South Africa. And I mean, McKinsey sued the city to try to keep us from building an international terminal. I mean, Delta paid for it because they wanted to be a regional airline with a few national routes. We said, the hell you say, not in Atlanta. This is the next great international city. And folks said, where in the hell did that crazy nigga come from? I mean, that's exactly what they said. And I said, that crazy nigga has been around the world and knows what's going on. It ain't my fault that I got to the UN. That was Jimmy Carter's fault. I didn't want to go there. But I'm saying once you go and see where the money is, and once you go and see where the future is, you can't be just like everybody else. You got to come back and be fighting and fussing and nice. So I think you got to cuss people out and tell them to go to hell and make them look forward to the trip.
Final comment I'll leave is this here. I made the point earlier when I made it clear to my staff and our network we're going to be broadcasting from here, and that is you can be two things. You can be present or you can have presence. I think for a lot of us, we're present in various companies, but we have no presence.
Very good.
So as John said, how are we using our voices? I did the Monique show a few years ago. She said, man, you on CNN, and I love watching you, but I'm afraid the stuff you say, you're going to get fired. I said, well, Monique, I start every job with the premise I'm going to get fired anyway. But there's nothing worse than being in a place, being present, and they still fire you anyway, and then you go home mad as hell, you never said anything. Whereas you'd be like me, if you get fired, cool, I said every damn thing while I was there. That's called having presence.
But if you get fired for a reason, you got somebody else to pick you up that wants to hear what you got to say.
And that's why I have 5 revenue streams, so if I get fired one place, I got 4 others. Folks.
Now that doesn't mean 5 wives.
No, 1 wife.
This is Christianity.
John Rogers, Ambassador Andrew Young.
A peaceful protest turned deadly. 37-year-old black man was shot and killed by Baton Rouge police. His hands are in the air, and you still get shot by the cops.
Oh my God, please don't tell me he's dead.
We're not going to let hate define us.
Race is a big part of this.
If truly all lives matter, then all lives need to matter equally.
What we require is action. What we require is accountability. We understand that black lives do matter, and we will keep focused on this issue.
NewsOne Now, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.